Hi everybody, welcome to the December 2016 Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup Group. Say hi everybody.
Hi.
We are so excited to be here today. My name is Gayle Goddard and I'm a professional organizer and this is what I do for a living all the time. My business is called the Clutter Fairy and I love my job. That's the short version. I love my job, which is why I'm up here talking about it. Tonight we are going to talk about make space for the life you love, organizing goals for 2017. Yay, somebody said yay. Everybody needs to have some goals about organizing, right? So we're going to not exactly talk about the goals directly. I want to talk about the way that stuff gets in your way and makes it not work for you so that you don't get to do the things that you want. We're just going to make examples and talk about how it doesn't work for you. Like, if you are a creative person and you have a craft room, and your craft room is a wreck, all your creativity gets turned off, right? If you are a cook and you like to cook, but you can't get to the kitchen counter, I have clients like that, you can't get to the kitchen counter, you can't make food, right? If you are filling the guest room with fill in the blank, then you can't have guests over, right? So we want to talk about all the ways that clutter interferes with your life today, with the goal that as we talk about them, you can think about things you want to be able to do in your house that you can't do right now, and have those be the way that you define your goals for next year. And then we're going to talk about all next year. We've already planned all the topics for next year. Oh, wow. Kudos to Ed and I. Thank you very much. He was just joking today that because we have planned 2017, now the apocalypse will come and we don't get to use it. But we're going to go on the presumption that we will be doing this all next year. And we're going to speak to each one of these areas that interferes with your way of having a good life, doing the things you want to do. So tonight we just want to explore the ways that it's interfering. And then at the end, you get to start thinking about, okay, what are my goals going to be instead? What do I want to have instead of the craziness that I have now, right? So let's talk about examples of how clutter starts to interfere with living your life the way you imagine it. Problem number one, getting ready and getting out the door. This is a problem that people have. A lot of my clients find it nearly impossible to get out of the house appropriately dressed and on time. You think that it's not a big deal, right? You just got to put some clothes on and brush your teeth, right? You just need to be clean and presentable and social to go out, right? Maybe you're going to, like Beth, you're going to do a little bit more action to your face than I would do, right, when I go out to a client in the morning. But a lot of people find that they can't get out the door. It's really super stressful. And what happens the first thing in the morning when you're super stressed and trying to get out the door? It just sort of sours your whole day, right? Like you start out the day really frantic, madly trying to get out, and you finally get out the door, and then you realize that you've just sort of spiraled the rest of your day out because you're all stressed out, right? So why can't people get out the door? Well, maybe you can't get to your closet. Can you walk up to your closet? Can you get into the clothes? Can you see where they are? If you can't get to the clothes, finding the clothes that you want to put on every day before you go to work is really a struggle. It's a hard thing to do, right? It slows you down. What about accessing the bathroom? Like I've been in some bathrooms where the counter was here and the stuff above the counter was here. It's a big mound of stuff with a sink in the middle. And I look at that counter and think, how do you find what you need to use to get ready for work? If it's that tall and that crowded, it's not helping you get ready, it's really hindering you from getting ready. Because you're spending a lot of time searching, where's the fill in the blank, and you're pawing through things to try to find things, right? It's another way that slows you down. It's another way that you're adding looking for it time into your morning routine. So I have to say that I'm not a morning person. I'm only half conscious in the morning when I first get up. And there's not a whole lot going on, right? And so I can't rely on my zippity zipness in the morning to get me past those kind of barriers. So the only way that I can really get up and get out of the house on time is the fact that even though I'm half conscious, I know that the hairbrush is in that drawer. I know where the Q-tips are and they're in that cup. I know where the toothpaste is and it's in the medicine cabinet, right? And it's always in the same place. And I don't have to swim through the stuff to get to the pieces that I want. So I can stand at the sink with my eyes practically closed because I haven't had coffee yet, and I can find the toothpaste and I can brush my hair. And you know, it's like I can manage without all the cylinders firing because the counter is arranged the same way all the time. And so I know where everything is. If you're having to fight for your product, whatever that product is, it's going to slow you down. It's going to make it more stressful. And I imagine standing at the sink like that and thinking, every time you get to the next step in getting dressed, I got to find the mascara, I got to find the foundation, I got to find the lipstick, I got to find the toothpaste, I got to find the hairspray, I got to find the hairbrush, I got to find the piece of jewelry I'm going to wear, I got to, you know, there's lotion, I got to find the perfume bottle. And if you're swimming, every time you get to the next step in your toilette, you have to go searching for the piece, then you're just making yourself tense every 30 seconds all morning long, right? That's a really stressful way to spend your day. So it's interfering with how you get out of the house in a peaceful and serene way, right? It's hard enough for me to get out without having to go fishing for, yeah, you guys don't want to see me that. One of the ways that people are hung up about getting out of the house is dealing with laundry. So if your closet is full and your dressers are full, then you're doing laundry and then you're putting the laundry into a hamper, or you're leaving the clothes in the dryer, which means you're getting dressed by going to the laundry hamper or going to the dryer to find clean clothes, right? Because you can't get to the closet and you can't get in the dresser, and so you go running down the hall to the laundry room. So then the laundry room sort of becomes like another closet, right? I was in a kid's room, a teenage boy's room, which has its own definition of problems, right, in the teenage boy's room. But the mom is madly doing the laundry for him, right, and she's making him, as mothers do, come get your laundry and take it in your room, okay? So he takes the hamper and the laundry goes into his room and then it just goes on the floor because she wants the hamper back, boom, right? So his clean clothes go onto the floor because he can't get to his closet or his dresser, because everything's full and everything's in the way. And how long do you think those clothes are staying clean on the bottom of a teenage boy's room with food? And the other day I had to clean out the, Whataburger milkshake thing, and it had been in there so long it had curdled into something else. And I was like, yeah, this is a teenage boy's room. But he's got a backup. His mother wants him to deal with the laundry. He tries, but it goes into the room and goes on the floor. So A, he can't find his clothes, and B, the ones that his mother's his washing are getting dirty and having to go back in without him wearing them, because they're just like mopping the floor and then having to go back out and get washed again. So it's another way that he's young and it's stressful for him to get ready in the morning because he can't deal with his clothes. And he's also, young and doesn't have the training to deal with it quite yet. And so we're trying to work on that and make it better for him, I do find a lot of people back up as their room fills and the closets fill and the dresser fills. They back up into the laundry room. And then you start hearing, I can't do laundry because I can't put it away. I don't like to do laundry because I don't have any place to put it. Right? And so then what happens? Then you're like fishing through piles of clothes on the floor because you nothing's clean and you're frustrated about washing it, and then it ends up on the floor, or it's hanging on the doorknob, or it's hanging on. I have a client that has a 4-poster bed with the railing all the way around the end, and she hangs clothes all along the edge, like it's a wall of clothes that go around. Like that's where her clean clothes back up. Instead of getting into the closet where she can't put anything else, she's got like, a curtain of clothing around the bed, which doesn't bother her, but really makes me crazy. Because I know that it's a hard way for her to manage. It's not that it makes any difference to me. It doesn't keep her from going to sleep at night. But it does make it hard for her to manage her clothes. Like the bed isn't exactly designed to hold clothes, right? So they're all sort of, cattywampus around, and it's I consider it to be a failed adaptation. Let me just say that. She's trying her best, and she needs better space, and she needs to make some more choices about clothes. And right now, the bed is a failed adaptation. Lots of people get backed up into the laundry room and then start living out of the hamper and living out of the dryer. And that's a sign that your clothing is interfering with your life, right? When you have to run naked down the hall to clothes, it's time to do it different, right? Okay. I talked about that. Oh, here's the ultimate one. What's the last thing you do when you leave the house? You got to find the keys and the cell phone, right? How many people spend 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes running around going, where's my keys, where's my keys? Because in the morning, you time it, don't you, down to the minute.
Yes.
And you don't have 20 minutes of looking for the keys in your timing. So a lot of people get super stressed out in the morning because they get all ready and they're ready to go out the door and they're looking it's like, okay, it's time. Where are my keys? And then they start running around the house. It's so much less stressful and easier for you if your keys and phone are in the same place every day, right? Like you go put them to bed at night, and so they're there when you get up in the morning. This is a minor concept, but because we're really attached to our phones these days, the idea of not having the phone like glued to us in the morning is really kind of stressful. But then it sort of it gets left behind in the bed, it gets left behind in the bathroom, it gets left behind as you walk around the house and you're putting it down and picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down. And then you have to like retrace all your steps to figure out where the phone is, right? So I think the adaptation that we need to make for that is we need a couple of parking spaces. Like when you're in this room, it's parked here, and when you're in this room, it's parked here, and when you're in this room, it's parked here. So you acknowledge that it's going to walk through the house with you all of the time, but build in a parking space everywhere that you're going to put it, right? So that you just have to go look at 4 parking spaces. You don't have to go look at every surface of your house figuring out where did I absentmindedly put my phone down while I was putting my shirt on, right? It's one of the ways that the clutter gets in the way of you getting through and out the door. And how annoying is that? And like I said, at night you can do all sorts of things to me and I can adapt and, swing and switch and it's all good. But don't mess with me in the morning, man, because I will just melt down. It's just not, I don't got nothing, and I just melt right on down. So it needs to be clean and smooth in the morning. And I work really hard. And part of it is I don't go to bed at night until I've finished resetting everything back to where it needs to go, and the phone's plugged in a specific place and the key's hanging on the wall, and like everything is back where it's supposed to go, because I know that there are no cylinders firing in the morning and I won't be able to figure it out in the morning. Okay, let's talk about problem number 2, handling your paper projects. So what I mean by this is clutter prevents you from managing the kind of paper projects you have in your life you have to do all the time. Like, you got to file your taxes every year, right? Surprisingly, they don't let you skip a year. It's not really something that you get to vote no for or, opt out of. And, eventually they're going to come looking for you. Or you'll start getting those little IRS letters that say, we haven't received your return, we haven't received your return. And, then you really start getting tense when those letters start showing up, right? So you have to do your taxes. But if you don't manage the paper during the year, then doing the taxes becomes that much more stressful, right? You get to tax time and you're scrambling through the house trying to find all of the relevant paperwork that's mixed in amongst all the other paperwork. And it makes taxes are awful. Tax prep is not a fun thing. If you're a tax accountant, it is your dream in your life, and we're happy for you and we thank you. But I was never a tax accountant. I was a CPA. I did financial reporting, and the one summer that I spent as a tax accountant, I thought I was going to slit my wrist before that summer was over. It was while I was in college, and I hated it so much. So the average person isn't souped up about doing their taxes, right? You don't want to make that process more stressful by not being able to find the stuff when you need it, right? So having a bunch of paper clutter interferes in your ability to make the taxes go by as quickly and easily as possible. You can't make them less painful unless you hire me to find all the paper and hire an accountant to do the return, which I have done before for people. I go in and dig out all the paperwork out of it, but it's an expensive way to not have to deal with it.
Where are you digging up the paper?
Well, people have lots of piles in the house. Like if you're a paper person and you don't like to process it well, then here's a stack of paper, here's a stack of paper, it's in that box, it's in that chair, it's in that container with the mail, it's on the floor of the closet, it's in the box when the party came, it's behind the couch, it's under the sink, it's, I find paper in really crazy places. I just went on an assessment, and this lovely young woman who is single and has a little boy, so stage set, right? She has a little boy. She has moved into a new house, and it's a very small house in the Heights. And I went over to do the assessment, and she started walking around and pulling drawers open. I just don't know what to do. And every drawer she pulled in had like chaotic paper in it. It was just full of, here's where she was shoving the mail because she couldn't deal with it anymore. And every drawer she opened looked exactly like that. So clearly, come tax time, she's in trouble, right? Like, she's not going to be able to find anything. So I'm going over there, and that's the first thing we're working on, is we're digging out all the paper and making files and giving her parking spaces and doing our best to figure out where to put her stuff, because she's frozen with not knowing what to do about it. So taxes are one of the things that if you have a lot of clutter, if you don't manage your paper, filing your taxes becomes odious, onerous, irritating in the extreme, right? Having the goal of managing your paper during the year so that you can just go pick up the file with the stuff in it and go to the accountant and say, deal with this. That's a much less stressful way to file your taxes, right? So that would be a goal, to get the paper so that you can make that happen. Another paper thing is, what if you want to go on vacation? Let's say you're going to Puerto Vallarta. It's time for a vacation, and you have to go out of the country. Do you have to have your passport for Puerto Vallarta? Right? You gotta have your passport. Who knows where it is? What if it's time to renew your driver's license, and you gotta show up with a passport or a social security card, right? What if you're gonna get a new job? They eventually ask you for the original social security card, right? You gotta prove who you are. And nowadays, they don't believe you. You gotta show up with the actual social security card, right? Which means you gotta put your hands on that little piece of paper that's 2 inches by 1 inch, right? And God knows where it is, right? Just this week, I was at somebody's house, and I went out there, and it had been a week since I was there, and she had scheduled to get her driver's license renewed because it was running out, and she was going on a vacation to New York, and she wanted to be able to drive in New York City. But her driver's license was expired. So she had to renew it, which means that she had to find the passport and a social security card, which she could not find. She spent a week through the house, and she found one of the two of them. And she went with the one and stood in line like this, nervous, and hoped that it was going to fly. And it was just luck of the draw that the person didn't ask her for both, even though the website told her she needed both. So she slapped the passport down, and she looked like the picture, I guess, and the person went on and let it happen. But she was, running a risk. It might have been another guy that's having a bad day. He wanted both of them, and where were they? She spent a week, and how she described it to me was, I spent a week tearing the house apart, trying to find it. And she thought she had looked everywhere, and she couldn't find it. So gotta handle your business. It's time to renew your driver's license. You gotta do it, right? The least irritating way to do that is to be able to go and put your hand on, here's the documents they want me to provide. If you can go and do those and make your little appointment online and show up at the thing, you might be able to renew your driver's license in an hour. But if you can't put your hand on that paperwork easily, then your clutter is making that chore hard, right? What was another paper one I thought of? Oh, what about the kids' shots records? So those of you that are parents know that when the kids change school, or there's stages along the way where you have to produce "my child is not toxic" records, right? You have to prove that you've been inoculated for all the things that they think is appropriate, right? You got to be able to go put your hands on it. And all of the other days of your life, these pieces of paper are not important until the one day that they are, and there is no substitute, right? Like, they don't care that you can't find it. They don't care that say, yeah, she got all the shots. No, you got to have the one document with all the things on it, right? So it's something that you have to be able to find once in a blue moon. And you don't want to tear your whole house apart looking for it, right? So it's another way that, okay, we're moving, and now the kids are enrolled in a new school, and this is another thing that I got to tear my hair out, snatch myself bald, trying to find the shots records, right? It's just another way that it gets in the way. What if the hurricane's coming? Or recently, what if the flood is coming, right? And suddenly there is water rolling into the house, and you need to be able to put your hands in 3 minutes on the pieces of paper that you want to survive the flood. If there's a bunch of clutter everywhere, kiss it goodbye. It's not, you're leaving the house without it, right? Which means that you got to go back to the passport office and get a new one, and it means you got to go to the driver's license place and get a new one, and that means you got to go to the school records and get your transcripts again, and it's like everything can be recovered, but what a painful process that would be. Wouldn't it be better if you could go and grab, here's my important legal documents, they're in a file, they're in an envelope, they're in a box, throw the box in the car, and you're gone, right? Then you're going to feel comfortable driving away from the house, because you know it's not going to make you insane trying to recuperate from the water in the house. There's that to recover with, but you're not going to have the added burden of, now I have to recreate my legal life in paper, right? It's another example. Let's talk about problem number 3. One that I don't actually do, but Ed does. How easy is it for you to cook yourself a meal? This is a basic thing, right? If you like to cook, or if you're in charge of the family cooking, that means you got to be able to get in the kitchen and function. If the kitchen counter is completely covered in stuff, if all the cabinets are completely full, if the pantry is overflowing, then I'm guessing that it's not functioning very well, and it's not easy for you to cook. I have clients who say to me, I really like to cook, but I can't cook because I can't get in the kitchen. The kitchen doesn't work. There's not enough counter space for me to cook. Well, yeah, you got to have some counter space, right? You got to know where the pots and pans are that you want to work with, the equipment that you need. Those of you who are into cooking, unlike myself, it's a work surface. It's a work area, right? And if it's full of stuff, you can't work. Which means that you're not eating home-cooked meals. It means you're buying a lot of food out that costs more money and isn't as great for your weight management, right? Eating a bunch of pizza all the time is easy and doesn't require cooking, but it also makes you fat. So you choose, right? This is a way that clutter is interfering with your life. You can't manage your food because you can't get in the kitchen. Now, I've seen houses like that where all of the available counter space becomes surface on which to store stuff. And so then the counter is this tall, all up to the sink, because if you went in the sink it would be wet. But I've also seen then the sink becomes the storage of the clean dishes, right? So one side of the sink you wash in, and the other side they drain in there, and then they never get put away because you can't get them into the cabinet because the cabinets are full, right? So you can really shrink down the kitchen surface space in a hurry with too much stuff in there and not being able to put stuff away. And if you do that, then people start putting stuff excess inside the stove, which means you can't use the stove to cook. Then they start putting stuff on top of the stove, which means you can't use the burners to cook, right? And then the one that I always find fascinating is the pantry is just another closet, right? It's just a closet with food. So if there's a walk-in pantry, basically you open the door, you step in, oh no. There's food, and then there's all this stuff on the floor. So you can't actually get into the pantry, you can just sort of lean into the pantry, right? Which makes it difficult for you to get the stuff that you paid for to use, right? You can't use it to cook because you can't get in there. It's the access is an issue regardless of what type of closet it is. And for a pantry, it means you can't get to the food. So then you rebuy and rebuy, and guess what happens with the new stuff? It's in a grocery bag and it goes on the floor in front of the pantry, right? And then pretty soon it is a row of things that has now creeped out, I'm going off camera. It creeps away from the front of the pantry, and then you really can't get to the stuff, right? And then you pay me, and I come and undo the pantry as a project, which means that I take it up down to the bare walls, and then we throw away 2/3 of the contents because it's expired. And then we find a can from 1978 in the back. It's always a joke for me to find the oldest thing in the pantry. It's like, look, this is from 1998. You probably can't eat it now. And we're throwing money away, right? Like I'm throwing contained food in cans, in jars, in bags, never been opened, straight in the trash. Because it's food, and you can't keep it for 10 years when it's liquid, and you know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't want to take that kind of risk, but it's also money going out the door. So this is the way, the pantry is too full, you can't cook in the kitchen, you can't put stuff away, it interferes in your life all over the place. It backs up on eating, it backs up on food prep, it backs up on getting yourself a drink, for God's sakes. Sometimes it's just too hard to do anything in the kitchen. And if you can dial it back, you can start cooking again. Now, does it have to be Martha Stewart? No. Because you know Martha Stewart has a whole bunch of people that make it look like that, right? Like that's not something that she accomplishes solo. And you know, they put a lot of stuff out of camera range, I'm guessing, so that it looks really good on camera. But you just need to be able to consistently go in and get to the things that you need to use and have a clear surface to, you know, chop up the onions to go in the sauce, right? You just need some room. It isn't a big requirement, but that crowded surface does prevent you from doing something really basic that you have to do every day. Like, you know, go make some coffee, right? Okay, talked about those. Okay, so here's problem number 4. Hosting guests at your house. Oh, look at that face. She was like, ugh. So everybody wants to have their out-of-town visitors come to visit, right? You want your family, well, she's like, no. One presumes that at some time, there's some people that you might want to come and visit you. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's the grandkids, you know, like maybe you're a grandparent and you want the grandkids to come and stay for the summer for a week to hang out with grandma, right? Wouldn't that be fun? But they don't have any place to sleep because the guest room is full. So maybe it's a junk room. Maybe it's a dual purpose room, like it's an office or it's a sewing room or craft room, and you're sort of splitting space, except if the dual purpose of the room sort of overtakes the rest of the room, then it becomes really hard to dial it back to let somebody come and stay. Maybe the house in general is so overstuffed that you don't feel comfortable letting anybody in the front door. I do have clients, and that's part of the struggle for clients that, okay, I want to hire you, Gayle, but it's really bad. I know. You have to trust.
Don't go to the doctor because you don't want to see him looking loud.
right, exactly. And it is something that you have to climb over to let a stranger come to your house and look at your stuff, right? And that I know that you're having to get okay with letting me come, and you're having panic attacks about I'm judging you, right? So A, that's bad for my business model. Let me just say that. Can't really make a living if I'm all judgy, right? And I'm not, right? I mean, those of you that have worked with me know that I'm not judgy about it. I want you to have a better life. I don't want you to look a certain way in the house, right? That's my goal, is ultimately for you to have something better, to be happier in your space, and whatever that looks like for you, right? So why was I saying that? Because it's part of why you don't want your family or your friends to come to the house, right? It gives you a panic attack that they're going to come and see and be all judgy, which they probably are, because they're related to you, and that's what your relatives do, right? They are a little judgy because they feel like they have the right because they're related to you. Now, you can have that argument all day long, but if you have a big family, there's bound to be some people in the middle who are not going to go with it, and they're going to be real judgy, right? And be all up in your business. So, if you want to spend time with your family, if you want friends to come from out of town and spend overnight, you got to be able to accommodate them. They have to be able to sleep and bathe, right? Which means you got to have a bathroom for them that they can get into, and you got to have a bed that they can sleep on, or a floor that you can blow up the mattress on, and be able to easily lay them down, and they're not going to kill themselves getting in and out of the room, right? Maybe they want a little piece of closet so they can hang some clothes up while they're there, right? If the guest bathroom is the secondary or third bathroom in the house, it's probably considered by the rest of the family to be, no man's land, and it'll get junky just like the third bedroom does, right? It's a good place for you to stash things during the regular part of your life. Oh, just go put that in the yada yada rooms and close the door during the party. But then eventually that room fills up and you're out of space, and then your grandkids want to come for the summer, and you'd have to move into a storage unit to let them come and stay. And so what happens is the plans get canceled, right? You have to put them off. You have to say, no, I got to clean the room first. Let's do it next year, right? It's a way that you sacrifice something that's cool for your life. My friend would come from out of town and spend the night. It's like, yeah, I move the desk out of the way. I blow up the bed in the office, and it's super easy. And they can go and they can... You want that to be a super easy thing so that you can have the socialization that comes with interacting with your friends and your family, right? Clutter is so isolating, and it really prevents people from maintaining relationships, and we're so good at that right now, aren't we? I mean, we're doing so much that is electronic. We've sacrificed so many ways that we stay in contact with people and substitute electronics for it, and then we fill up our houses and we don't let people come in. Come on, that's not what you want for yourself. You want something better than that. I want something better than that for you. It's great to be able to have a party at the house and have people come over. We went to Ann's for Thanksgiving. It was awesome. And you know what? Ann did not kill herself making the house look, like a showpiece. She has a life and a family, and she had a whole bunch of relatives staying there. And we all came over and ate and had a great time, and it was fabulous. And I was so grateful to be able to come. I have to say, thank you very much. It was wonderful. But that's the kind of stuff that you want to be able to do. And Ann was able to make room for everybody, and everybody got to sleep, and everybody had a bathroom, and it was all cool, and we all had a great time. That's something to aim for as a goal. You can put it all in the guest room and block the guest room out, but you are sacrificing your capacity to socialize when you do it. A minor version of, and this is really related to how my business got started, you can't have friends over if you're embarrassed for them to come in the house, right? Which means that you at least have to get a public area where you're willing for people to come from the front door to the couch and sit down and talk to you and have coffee or have a meeting or whatever, right? Even if they're not going to be overnight guests, you still want an area where people can come into your house and interact with you for a little bit before they go home again. We have bead meetings at my house, the bead group meets, and so when it's our turn, all the bead ladies come to the house, and we have to, shuffle the kitchen, the dining room around a little bit so everybody can sit there with all their bead stuff and whatever. It takes a little bit of effort, but it's totally worth it, because then we spend the day sitting around doing our craft together and having a good time, and it's awesome. So I want you to be able to do that too. When I started my business, before I started my business actually, I had a surgery and I had to go be out of work for 6 weeks. And I hadn't done that since college, and some of you have heard this story. I went to go visit my friends, and they had to clear a space off on the couch for me to be able to sit down. And they were like, oh, come on in, Gayle. And I sort of swam my way through the stuff, and they swept off the things, and I sat down, and it was really kind of, it looked like a landscape where somebody had been sitting before, and there were sort of ripples of stuff away from where I was sitting, like it went out like this. And I ended up saying to them, you know, I could help you work on that. There was a bunch of bead related stuff, and so we were talking about beads, and like, I can help you with that. And they took me up on it, and they were my trial and error client. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing at the time, but they were the people that inspired me to start doing this for a living. And it all came from them having to clear the space off the couch for me to sit down. But if you aren't comfortable with people watching you clear the space off on the couch and sit down, then that means you're not inviting people to your house, right? And you're not, maintaining your relationships and enjoying your hobbies. And I want something better for you than that. It's a good thing to aim for. At least have some space where you feel comfortable for people to come and visit. That's guest rooms. So these are just some of the topics that we're going to talk about as the year goes by next year. We're going to concentrate on specific rooms. I want to be able to cook in the kitchen. I want to be able to have guests overnight. And we're going to spend a meetup talking about what you can do to tackle that area and make that happen for yourself and have that be the goal. You can ignore the clutter that's there. And I think we get a little numb to it as it builds and you sort of get used to the stuff that's there. I recognize that as I go into people's houses for the first time and do an assessment and we walk along and we walk by something and I say, what's in that pile right there? What's that about? And then they go, oh, like they'd forgotten that it's there. Like they're always surprised at the things that I point at and have questions about. Like, what is that? And it has become landscape, right? It's become part of the wall or a piece of furniture in your head. And so when I propose tearing it down, there's always a little shock involved. Like, really? Yeah. I'm going to open the lid. Let's start, And when we start working on stuff like that and we clear those boxes away or the pile of mail there or whatever is there that I'm working on and we clear it away and suddenly there's a clean surface underneath, people are always like, oh my God, there's so much room in here. This is so, yeah, you've been living with it really crowded. And now it's better, right? You get used to it, you sort of accept it, and you slowly erode the things that bring you joy in your own home. And you trade them for not enough space, not being able to do things that you want to do, sacrificing socializing, sacrificing ease and relaxation. Like the house is where you're supposed to recoup, right? It's the place when everybody runs and, for me it's run home and the bra comes off. Like I have to wear a bra in public, but I don't have to wear a bra in my house. So I go home and I get to be comfortable in the house, right? The pajamas go on because I want to be relaxing. That's where you're supposed to rejuvenate and recuperate and feel good. And if you're not able to go home and rejuvenate and recuperate and feel good, then you are suffering because of the way that your house is impacting you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I want you to think about what kinds of things would make you happy. What would you like the house to be able to do for you? So if I was in your position, I would not say, I want to cook more. That would not be my choice. If Ed was in your position, Ed would be saying, I want to recover the kitchen because I like to cook, right? I want to be able to have guests at my house overnight Penny's daughter comes and stays. My sister came and stayed over the summer. We want to be able to have a space where somebody can come and plop down and sleep for a week. And so the office gets converted. I move my desk against the wall. We put the bed up there, and poof. If you don't want to have people at the house, then your goals might be different. I want to pursue my hobby. I want to have people over for tea. I had a client that used to say that she wanted to be able to serve, she wanted to host teas, like tea and crumpet and cookie, and she wanted to have afternoon tea events with her friends. They thought that was a fun thing to do. She'd never been able to do it because she couldn't get, the room arranged for her to do that. That would be a goal. I want to have tea with my friends. I want to play board games at Christmas. I want to host a PTA meeting at my house. You see what I'm saying? You want to think about what you want to be able to do in the house that you can't do now, and then we'll work on what is in the way to get you there. Does that make sense? Okay. So, who has a question? We only have 10 minutes? God, that went by fast. Who has a question today about organizing or goal making or what's in your way? Yes, ma'am.
Can you, sum up how to deal with those paper piles?
Okay, let me just laugh for a minute. Thank you. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the sum up the paper piles in a minute. Okay, so there's a long version depending on what kind of paper it is, how long you need to keep it, what you're keeping it for, blah, blah, blah. And we have talked about that at great length. There's other meetups out there that you can go listen to the videos to get caught up in a longer version. But the short version is, the thing that people do with paper is they look at a pile of paper and they go, oh God, that's so annoying. I don't know how to deal with that. And what's in that pile is a whole bunch of trash, a whole bunch of junk mail, a whole bunch of, here's the calendar that's 3 years old. There's a lot of trash in that sea. I mean, if you imagine that the paper in your house is just sort of floating along from surface to surface, drawer, in and out of a drawer, in and out of a bag or a box. It's an endless, self-seeding pile of paper, right? If you just go through and make a keep box, and go through and actually look at the paper, and the only decision you make is, do I have to keep it or can I dispose of it in some manner? Shredding, recycling, trash, right? If you just do that, and don't worry about the stuff that you're going to keep, don't worry about how you're going to deal with it, where you're going to put it, how you're going to file it. You just have the box that says keep, and it doesn't go in there until you determine that you actually have to keep it. If you do that, and you go through all of the paper, you don't make any other decision, go through every drawer, find every box, do it all. However long it takes, not in one sitting. Or don't do it all in one sitting because you'll, diminishing returns, right? 5 hours later, you won't be making good decisions anymore. Then you start keeping it all. But, do an hour, do 30 minutes, do 2 hours, whatever you have the stamina for, right? Keep, toss. I promise you, 75% will go out. It will all be out of date, advertisement, trash. You'll have 47 things from Wells Fargo, but if you actually open the envelope, you'll realize that half of those are advertisements. And they're not actually your bank statement, right? So go through, keep, toss, and a whole bunch of it will disappear. And then the pile that you actually have to deal with will be much smaller, and it will be in one box. So even if you don't know where something is, you kept it and it's in the box somewhere. And then you just have to sit there and rifle through the box until you find it. Instead of going to look for it in every surface in the house where paper might be. That's a good stage one when you feel really overwhelmed by paper and you have a whole bunch to do and there's no way you can get it all done in one sitting. And that's the nature of paper, right? Every paper that you touch, every piece of paper is a decision point. Do I have to have this? What is it? And then usually it's followed by, and where am I going to put it? What am I going to do about it? And that's where people freeze up and stop. So you don't want to do that half. Save that for later. Because when you come back to if you've done everything and you come back to the keep box, then you can sort that keep box by category. And there'll be 15 bank statements, and you know that they have to go into the tax file. And there'll be 3 insurance policies, and 2 of them will be expired. And you'll be able to throw 2 of them away, right? So it'll be easier if you let it shrink first. Okay? Is that a short answer? Yes, ma'am.
As I've been going through stuff the last month, I've got 5 paper boxes that are full of things that can be shredded, that actually have to be shredded
Okay?
because it's got too much personal information and social security numbers,
All that stuff.
medical stuff, all that. Somebody's told me, well, you can just take all that down to like FedEx or UPS. They've got these boxes you can put stuff into shred. However, it's $1 a pound.
Right.
Okay, I probably have now $5,000 worth of shredding if I went and did that route.
So
Because I've weighed it, a ½ inch of paper is a pound.
So you think you have a many pounds?
Oh, I know I do.
Okay. So you're asking me what's the better solution?
Where can I go and take 5, right now, like I said, 5 boxes of stuff?
They have shredder events with,
Yeah.
like, just suggested donations around town every now and then.
She's right.
Okay.
A lot of people do that. You can also call companies that do that sort of corporate shredding, document shredding with the big trucks. Some of them charge, you show up you take it to them, and they will, they have a rate for 5 boxes or 15 boxes or whatever. Everybody's slightly different, but you can spend $100 and hand them all of it, and they will shred it. You can have those trucks because they figured out that there's a lot of shredding going on in residential areas. They all do some residential shredding. So if you have that much, you can call the shredder guy, and he will come to the house for, $100. I'm making the number up, but in that vicinity, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending. But a company will come to your house, and the guy with the gloves and the big strong arms will pick up the boxes, dump them into the thing, and you can watch it go into the truck and get eaten on the camera. And let me tell you, if you've already designated this is shredding, it's just let it be done. Like, it's so worth the money for it to be done in 30 minutes. Like, the guy will show up, the truck will eat it, and it will be done in 30 minutes. It will be completely out of your hair. Totally worth the money. Because any time that you think you want to do that yourself, shred it yourself, yeah.
No, we burned through 2 shredders during the summer.
Yeah. You can't, because the personal shredders are for daily shredding. They're not for massive shredding projects. And even a $100, $150 shredder from Office Depot is still not designed for huge amounts of shredding. And what happens when you get tired of shredding? On your 4th hour of shredding, you start putting in 16, 25 pieces of paper, trying to jam it through because you're so sick of it, right? And you just kill it. And it's also not designed for that kind of continuous use, right? It's a little motor, it overheats, whatever. So that project, long-term hours of shredding personally, is just going to eat your motor and waste your time. You can have the truck eat an entire, the big 96-gallon trash cans that they have a thing like that, a trash can like that. They fill it up with paper, they dump it in the truck, and 5 minutes later it's gone. I mean, why waste your time, right? And you're moving, so you have a time element here that means that, you need to get it done in a hurry. I would call around, and I'll give you some names when we're off air, but there's a couple people that will just come to the house, and you write them a check, and it will be done.
Thank you.
Okay? Who else has a question? What's happening at your house? Yes, ma'am.
One thing you mentioned about putting important documents in a box or a file, that's something I've been meaning to do, especially now that I have a kid. And things are, I feel like they're organized, but they're all over the house. So if there was an emergency, I wouldn't have time to grab everything.
You'd be running around to all your little hidey holes, snatching them all out, right?
Yeah. So someone told me a while back, like a binder, but I don't know. What do you think is best? You mentioned a box or a file.
So one of the things that it needs to be is portable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking for a file box that has a snap-on lid and a handle.
Okay.
They make file boxes that are this wide, basically, that are designed to have files in them, but you can put anything in them. You can have a little piece of luggage. You can have, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, except that you have to consistently put the important stuff in it. Some people buy little inexpensive safes that are, you know, sort of carrying like large lunchbox size. You know, they don't hold a ton of paper, but they're going to hold enough that you can go and grab that thing and run. There are people that make their living creating, you know, storage containers for, here's our, you know, Susie Orman does one where here's all the things that are supposed to be in here and the order and all. We give you the instructions and here's the dividers and and it's fireproof and it snaps shut and it has, you know, you can get super fancy or you can just go to Office Depot and get a box. No, it's not going to survive the fire, but if there's a fire, you're hopefully going to grab it and go. And you know, if you have a fire, that's the least of your problems, right? The idea being that you just have one parking space for all the stuff that is considered, this is my legal presence on the planet, and I need to know my social security card and my driver's license and my passport and my, you know, and the precious, here's the death certificate of my father and here's the precious photo from 1857 that we can't possibly lose. And you know, you don't want to put 5 boxes of photos in your vital records, but there might be some very precious ones that you absolutely want to escape with, and they go in with the passport if you want to be able to keep up with them. And then it's like, you know, it has a handle and you run and you go, right? I have a file in an office, and I would run into the file office and grab that folder and hit the road. And it's one that has pleats on the side, so it's like you don't want to be running with stuff falling out the file folder, right? So you do, you know, portable is important, and you want to take that into account. I'm getting the hook. So I want to say thank you for coming. I hope you have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in 2017.